Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here. Welcome to Truth Be Told, where we are just speaking truth, the truth of God's word to help people grow. Today, I'm so excited because I'm joined by an incredible man of God, somebody that I actually really admire very, very much. He's an author, he's a pastor, he's an artist. He has done so many things for the community. He is the founder of Flavor Fest, just so many things under his belt. Pastor Tommy Colonen, also known as Urban D, pastor of Crossover Church in Tampa, Florida. Gotta be the shoes. That's the new book, Pastor Tommy. How are you?
What's up, Jeannie? It's good to be with you today, reconnecting. Yeah, you've been a crossover many times over the years, you and your husband. And so, yeah, it's good to chat today.
You guys have a beautiful home there. I love what you do for the community.
Thank
When we're thinking about outreach, even in our own ministry, we always think about how God uses your work and how we can be that where we are. So
Yeah,
thank you for that. I love that you continue not only, to pastor, not only to be such an instrumental part of your community, and really changing the world for Jesus, but you continue to release content to help others, follow suit to do what the Lord would want us to do. So, Gotta Be the Shoes, where sneaker culture meets faith. That's the new
yeah.
book. So cool. The branding is incredible. It's so
Thank you.
hip hop, it's so edgy, urban. I'm from New York. We're all sneakerheads in New York.
Yes.
But where sneaker
Philly,
culture
we
meets
are
faith,
too.
right? So talk to me. What inspired that? What made you feel like this is something I need to put out?
Yeah, so me growing up in Philly, right down the street from you in New York, and I married a New Yorican. So my wife, she's from Queens, got my queen from Queens. So, but growing up in the city, like sneakers was always like a thing ever since I was like in elementary school. And I remember getting clowned when I was in elementary school because I had some Bobos on and they were all making fun of me. I'm like, these are not Bobos. Look, they don't even have a name on them. Like, what do you mean, Bobo? Then I learned that Bobos, that's what they called shoes with no names back in the day. So they were clowning me big time. So I went home. I'm like, Mom, I got to get me some Nikes. And I came from a low income family, and my parents just couldn't afford it. They normally got me like shoes at the thrift store, maybe the blue light special at Kmart, you know. And so my dad was just like, look, we can't afford it. You got to figure it out yourself if you want to get these shoes. Save up for it, figure it out. I'm 10 years old. So that really kind of awakened the entrepreneur in me. I started my first business, and the one goal of that business was to get me some shoe money and save my reputation. So I
Oh
started
my
like doing a
gosh.
little bit of everything. I was cutting grass, raking leaves, shoveling snow, whatever I could do. And I saved up, and within a few number of weeks, I was able to get my first pair of Nikes. And
Wow.
so then I was just, I guess you could say I was hooked. I was really into shoes after that. And so, yeah, so the book comes from a place of like, it's my story. I've always loved shoes. At the same time, the book wrestles with like, when does that cross the line and become materialism, or how much
Mm.
is too much, or when does it become an idol when the created is above the creator? And so the book like talks about all that stuff.
It's so funny, but as you were talking, it reminded me of something I shared with my homegirl in New York yesterday. She was just like, I don't understand what's going on here. Like there's I see a gospel something on every corner. She's up in Harlem, and she's like, you hear gospel music, you see people ministering, you see things on the buses, you see things on the garbage cans. What is it here that people just don't really, surrender and give their, heart to Jesus when they're so saturated in different ways. And the Lord really revealed something to me in my response to her. I said, everyone is so busy hustling for the
Yeah.
money to survive that there isn't time to stop and actually engage with God. And as you were talking, I thought of that. Every I'm going to be honest, every drug dealer I know, every young man that I know in my neighborhood that turned to that lifestyle, it started there
Yeah.
because they wanted some fresh kicks in junior high school. I'm serious.
Yeah.
And then the hustle then took over their life, and then they became, the next guy on the block, and it just kind of distracted them from anything else. So interesting. I don't know, that just really came to me as we were talking. But I want to talk about that, the tension. I know your book talks about the tension of, you know, that of the excess, or having sneakers is great. I love a fresh pair of kicks. You know what I mean? And I know you do. I've seen I've
Yeah.
seen your style. But here we are people that are submitted and surrendered to Jesus. How do we balance this, whatever it is? It's like that celebrity kind of, always with the chain, or the freshest thing or whatever. How do we balance even as believers?
Yeah. So I think it's definitely a tension. There needs to be a balance to it. There needs to be accountability to it, because as believers, I don't see that there's anything wrong that you can't have some nice things. You could celebrate fashion and art and shoes and all those things. But I mean, there is a fine line. And here's the thing, I talk about this in the book. There's not like a clear cut answer for every person, because people want to know that sometimes. They're like, well, what do you think? How many pairs is too many? Like, is it seven, or is it seven times seven? Like biblical. No, that's not. Um, and really, I think I talk about in the book that it really kind of depends on what season you are in your life, because we're all at different seasons. We're at different economic seasons as well. If you have young kids and you're just starting out, you have a lot of bills, you probably can't get a lot of shoes right now. There's a lot of other responsibilities that you have. When you get to a different season in your life where maybe you've moved up in your job, you have a little more disposable income, and you could treat yourself with a couple pairs of shoes, but with the caveat that you're also still being generous and you're taking care of all the other things that need to happen in your life. Of course, first and foremost, being generous and being a giver towards God and his work, and taking care of your family, and not being in a bunch of debt. Because I know a lot of sneakerheads and just people that are into brand names and all that, and they might be dressed super fresh, but they got like a ton of credit card debt. And they're, like you said, the hustle, they're just like, they're spending beyond their means, and they're having to hustle even harder and get another side hustle, another job, and work extra hours. And so it can definitely become a huge distraction. It goes way beyond just shoes and things that we buy. I mean, it can be going on vacation and trips, and like, we're in a consumer culture, so there's this tension of like, they're always trying to get us to spend, and spend more than we have. And I'm sure, Jeannie, like, there's been a season in your life in the past where, like, yo, if I could make that amount of money, I would be good.
Yeah,
Right. And then you get to that amount of money and you're like, it doesn't feel, why?
yeah,
Because you've leveled up your lifestyle in all these other areas, and it's still not enough. There always is other levels. So I think we got to have those boundaries, those guardrails. We got to have accountability with some relationships, with some people that we talk that out with. We got to have a budget where we prioritize the things that are important. So if
yeah,
there is money left over in there to go and get some things, you can, but you took care of all the other things that are even more important. And many
yeah.
times the stuff becomes the number one thing for a lot of people, and that's where it gets out of whack.
Yeah, and it's idolatry in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about that because what I love about you is your heart for discipleship. You have meetings with, people all over, where you're just really sharing wisdom and discipleship. And I love that, because when I read scripture, that's what we're asked to do, is to go into the world and make disciples. And I love that about you. So in the process of identifying some of these things, right, where you know that our innate ability, or whatever we want, is to strive for the more, the more, the more. What are some of the pitfalls that you find? Is it identity issues? Is it, what is it that the enemy is using, in a sense, to kind of have us wanting to consume and to, be out of balance and out of whack, and not really understand the importance of balanced life the way the Bible teaches? Have you been able to kind of just dig into that, or identify what is it, and how do you
Yeah,
counsel
I
people
think
out of
you
it?
hit it right on the head. You said identity. So, because for me, as a teenager that grew up in a Christian home, but when I started to taste what some of the world had, and when I started to get some shoes and some clothes, and it becomes this unsatisfiable appetite if that becomes your identity. And so for me, growing up low income, when I was able to wear brand names, I felt like I was somebody. And I think, like you said, growing up, in the hood, and you see some of these kids that start going to the street life and selling drugs and all that, because then they can get all the nice stuff. If we wear the nice stuff, we feel like we are somebody. Like, I have this brand name, I have this gold chain on, I have this certain kind of sneakers on, and look at me, look at this watch. And so I think that so many people get caught up as the stuff becomes their identity, the brand name becomes our identity, and you get noticed, like, oh man, that's nice, that's a nice outfit, oh, that's a, and the girls looking at you, and people get addicted, and it's like a hit of dopamine every time that we get something new, or every time somebody gives us a compliment, and then we begin to live for that. And people do that on social media. They live for the likes, they live for the comments, they live for the amount of followers they have. And so many people become like addicted to that, and that becomes their identity. And so for me, as a teenager, I share this in the book as well. I started working at a retail place, and I was, it was closed there. And a friend of mine at my job taught me how to steal, and I never really stole much stuff before, but he's like, ah, man, we steal all the time, and the manager steals. And so I'm hearing like, oh, everybody's doing this. The manager's stealing. Yeah, he changes the inventory sheets, and they have insurance. It's no big deal. And there was no cameras there. This was back in the day. There was no cameras. There was one plainclothes security guy. We all knew who he was. He would all hang around and talk to us. And so, anyway, so I started stealing. And soon that became an addiction, where I was stealing literally hundreds and hundreds of dollars of clothes every month, to where my closet was bursting at the seams. And I was having to make up all these stories to my parents of where I was getting all this stuff from. And so a quote that I put was, the fuller my closet got, the emptier my heart was. And so, because that was my identity. And until I found my identity in Christ, that's when I felt true contentment. And now my closet can be much smaller than that, and I'm still content. I'm still happy, and I have joy, because I realize my identity is in Jesus, and some of the things that He's called me to do versus the stuff.
That's beautiful. And for those that are struggling, shedding that narcissistic kind of, serve me, please me, I need to, the me kind of thing. How do you advise, and that's what I would love for you to share, because I know you walk with men, you
Yeah,
help, and particularly men, and it's so important, because we know the men are under so much attack. I look at all the different men in my church, and the target on their backs to take them out is so hardcore. I'm like, whoa, like, it's clear, that there's an assault on men. But I love that you do take men under your wing. What do you share to them, if they're struggling to shed this? How do
yeah.
you?
I would say like to challenge guys out there, like take an honest inventory because it's so easy to just kind of shrug this off. Like, nah, I'm good. I'm not really that. I know I got a few things I'm struggling with, but I'm not as bad as so and so. And we can always play the compare game. And there's always going to be somebody that's worse than you. That's why reality TV was so big, that back a few years back, because we just watched everybody else's train wreck of their life and we felt better about ourselves, right? But I would tell you, like, man, take an honest inventory of where are you really struggling, how are you really doing, when it comes to your relationship with God. Are you really spending time with Him versus the amount of screen time you have? um, versus like, hey, where are you at with your finances? Are you balancing things properly? If you're married, like, what does that look like? The time that you have with your wife, with your family. Um, are you looking at pornography? Are you tempted in some different areas? What's some of the temptations and the weaknesses you might have? And it's different for a lot of men and women, but you got to take an honest inventory because we can all do better. But a lot of times, like you said, we're so busy, we're moving so fast, we're distracted because we're spending hours and hours on this every day, right? And the screen time, and we're scrolling, and I was just to check a text message, and 38 minutes later, because I went on all my other apps, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost lunchtime, I didn't get everything done yet. you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the enemy is, like, in the season and culture we're in right now, it's set up to keep us distracted. And if the enemy can keep you distracted, then you're not going to look at the real things that you got to work on yourself, and to get better and build and grow. And so you got to have some people around you as well that's going to hold you accountable, that's going to talk to you about these things, going to pray for you, people that you can talk to and ask questions and advice when you're feeling overwhelmed, because life can be overwhelming, and we got to have a circle of people that we can talk to that can help us become better men and better women.
Yeah. I love that you've with the hip hop community, you've provided a place where people in the culture can just come and, attend your conferences and grow and, share their giftings with the world. Talk about, just I know Flavor Fest will have another one this year. Talk about that. Talk
Yeah,
about whatever it is that God has kind of put
sure.
in your heart.
Yeah, so Flavor Fest is an urban leadership conference that we've been doing for over 2 decades. And it really just started because my first album that I put out that was a national album was in the stores back in the day when we used to have to go to buy music in the stores. Remember that?
Yes,
You know that.
I
So,
do.
anyways, inside of there, I had a picture of my youth group, and there was like a couple hundred kids behind me and my wife. And there was a paragraph about how we were using hip breakdancing classes and all this different stuff to reach teenagers unchurched. All my kids were unchurched. The church was little. We didn't even have any families in it. There was like one guy that had a daughter that was a teenager. All the other kids were just kids from the neighborhood. Their families didn't even go to our church. So it was a beautiful thing God was doing. But immediately, like, people all over the country were buying my CD and seeing that and started to call us and email us and visit us because we're in Florida. Everybody comes on vacation to Florida and, like, let me go to Urban D's church. And so
Wow.
we realized, like, man, there's a need for us to help people. Like, what? And I didn't feel like an expert, but what we were doing was short. We had only been doing it for a short period of time, but it grew. And so I'm like, man, I feel a responsibility to teach other people and tell other people, what we're doing so they can do it in their cities. And so that's how we launched Flavor Fest. We just did it. Say, hey, we're going to do a weekend where we're going to have workshops. We do a big outreach in the community. We have a big concert at night that's done in excellence with good sound and good lighting and a live DJ and a dope host that keeps the night flowing. And, have breakdancing involved and guys doing graffiti art, all the elements of hip hop. And in Christian hip hop, in the church world 20 years ago, nobody was doing that. And so God really kind of helped us pioneer something really special. So a lot of people kind of knew Flavor Fest as this music festival, but really the main reason we do it is we want to train leaders, um, church leaders, pastors, church planters, youth workers, nonprofit leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, creatives, all of that goes together. And so we've been doing it for, since the year 2000. So we're coming up to almost 25 years. It's crazy, but we've trained now over 7,000 leaders. And so I don't even think you know this, Jeannie, but last year we took it on tour, and this year we're doing it again. So we are going to be going to
Incredible.
New York City on May
Incredible.
18th. These are like a one-day event called Flavor Fest Summit. We'll be in Queens at Elohim Christian Center. We will be in Los Angeles June 1st. We will be in Houston, Texas, June 29th, and Chicago, July 27th. And then we'll be back in Tampa for the full conference, which is 2.5 days. And that will be the second weekend of November, November 7th through the 9th. So you can go and get all the info on the tour and all the dates at flavorfest.org. And our theme this year is customized. Like God has customized you, just like, a lot of people are into customized shoes, and just people like to customize all kinds of stuff nowadays. But God has customized you to do life in a very unique way and do ministry and be you. And we can learn from the people that went before us and principles and mentorship. But the way that we're going to do it, it can be different and unique. And so it's really given, church leaders and artists permission to say, hey, be exactly who God created you to be authentic, be Jeannie O, and tear it up.
I was just gonna say, you speaking to me because that's the season I'm in. I needed to kind of break away from some other things to really do and be what God has created me to be in this season, fully for His glory. And I
Yeah.
think part of Him getting the glory is us, stop the facades, putting the facades down or the distractions down, and really stepping into what He's called us to. I know your book is available on Amazon for like if people want physical copies, and there's also digital and audio, but you can get a book for free. I don't know why you do these things. You are amazing that you are provide you even offer the book for
Yeah,
free
I
for
just
those
I
that want it.
decided to do something for the first time like this. I'm really passionate about this message. And listen, all of us, we know somebody that's into sneakers. Even if you're listening to this right now, watching this, and maybe that's not your thing. I think it is for a lot of us though that are on here. Your crowd, Jeannie.
Yeah.
But even if you're not like fully into that, like listen, you know somebody that's into shoes, and this could be a great gift, a great tool to minister to them. So I've been so passionate about it. I'm like, man, I want to see this message get out to at least 10,000 people. And so we're doing something crazy. We are giving copies of the book away for free. You could go to the website freeshoesbook.com, and it actually comes with a master class. So there's videos. There's 8 chapters. There's 8 videos that go with each chapter as well. And the book inside has pictures in it. We did a photo shoot with all like the sneakerheads from my church, and they brought their best pairs out. So there's close to 100 original pictures in the book as well. So that kind of keeps people engaged and keeps their attention as well. But yeah, freeshoesbook.com. And here's the other crazy thing we're doing too. I wrote a book called Frames on Perspective, and we're throwing that in as well because I did have some extra copies of this. A friend of mine printed a whole bunch for me for free, and I'm like, man, I'm just gonna give that away. I got like boxes of these, and let's get them out to people. So you get both of those books for free. The only thing you have to do is pay for shipping. I own the books, but I don't own the post office. So you just pay for shipping is yours. And then if you want to like, this is the other thing I know you said the packaging was awesome. If you didn't
Yeah,
know,
show us.
actually an option is, and this part isn't free. You can upgrade to this, but it's super cool. We made a custom shoebox. We even put like the actual like shoe information on the side that's relevant to the book, and that's actually the book cover. So my graphic designer, shout out to him. He did such an amazing job, Josue Marrero, and yeah, it's just really cool. So this is a huge conversation piece, like a collector's item box comes in there, and there's even sneaker paper around the book, custom sneaker paper. So we really tried to do like all those really cool details. There's even some custom Jordans on the website as well if you want to get those. There's some Jordan ones, and they actually have the book cover in the side panel, and they have the Gotta Be the Shoes logo on the back. I have a sneaker customizer in my church that hooked those up. So yeah, this
That's
book has been a
amazing.
lot of fun. It's like the most complex project I've ever done because of the master class, the box, the there's a
Yeah.
spoken word piece to it, the custom shoes, all that stuff. But it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been touching a lot of people and pointing them to Jesus.
Thank you for what you do, Pastor Tommy. Honestly, the offerings that you give to the world are authentic. They're genuine for Christ. And that's what I've always appreciated about you and your wife. Beautiful people. I admire what you do. I know your love, our city, outreaches that you do is just, I mean, yeah, goals. You know what I mean? Like that's what I
Yeah.
think of. So I can't wait to visit Crossover Church again. I can't wait to see you guys in person
Yes,
and
gotta
spread the
have you
word.
back
Yeah,
with the new music this year. Can't wait for the new record.
I'm excited. I can't wait either to just get together again for the Lord. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.